Hi, everyone, and welcome to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K. Laidlaw. Wendy has spent the last 2 years helping women with various stages of endometriosis to heal naturally after putting her condition into remission. After her own healing success from stage 4 endometriosis and adenomyosis, she's inspired to heal others, and her goal is to help some of the 175 million women know that there is another way other than painkillers, drugs, or surgery. This is the place to be for real talk with real people for real results, so you can learn how to heal your endometriosis naturally. Please note that the opinions expressed in this program may represent options, but are not a substitute for proper medical care. Before starting any new healthcare program, we recommend you consult with a health professional.
Hey everyone, it's Wendy K. Laidlaw here from Heal Endometriosis Naturally, and I have a very special surprise for you today because of on the back of promoting my second book, How I Ended My Endometriosis Naturally, I was asked to go on a number of radio stations and share my story, and also Marie came on as well, Marie from the UK. You've heard her in previous podcasts. And we were due to go onto another radio station, and unfortunately that didn't go ahead this year. They're talking about being next year. And I thought, you know what, why don't we just have our own EndoBoss table talk? Why don't I ask these two beautiful women who are going to come on to this other particular station with me, and why don't we just have our own conversation, like every woman, well, most women do, of course, COVID permitting, and just, you know, we're having a virtual table talk on Zoom, and just kind of, you know, so you can listen in and hear, not only just hear their stories again, but just hear our conversations and hear our shifts and hear kind of like how things have changed for us, and most importantly, to give you hope and inspiration and a pathway. So I'm going to introduce you to these beautiful women. You can't see them at the moment because obviously it's going to be on podcast, but you may see them on time on the YouTube channel as well. But first I want to introduce Sara from the UK. Lovely to have you here, Sara. Thank you so much for coming on.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me again, Wendy.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I also want to thank Marie as well. You've heard from me a few times, but Marie, thank you so much for coming on again.
Absolute pleasure. Just brilliant to be able to share with other women and to meet Sara as well, whose hair looks beautiful, by the way.
Hair is yeah, absolutely beautiful. Well, that's it. I just kind of thought we could just like have a chat, and because Marie, when we were doing it as well, it was just interesting what was coming. It's quite a cathartic thing for us to do because we're through on the other side now. At the same time, we want to inspire women who, we're at whatever stage there are, that there is hope. And never ever to give up, because I'll kind of lead in with you both and see what you think. I was having a conversation with my family just last weekend, and I was saying it's such a shame because I get emails, hundreds of emails every day, or my team do, and hearing the distress and upset and confusion and almost giving up hope of a lot of women when they say, well, that's it, I'm stuck with it. Whereas something like cancer, I think people might get that as a condition and they think, well, I'll have chemotherapy, or I'll do this, or there's always that feeling of they'll get over it. But with endometriosis, there's this overwhelming misinformation that's it, it's a life sentence. And I just kind of wonder, I'll start with you first, Sara, kind of, when, before you were able to take back power and control as you've done, can you remember what that was like to feel like you were being given a life sentence by the condition?
Yeah, I mean, from a young age, I was just constantly always searching, trying to find a way. I was always going to the doctor and very often not being listened to. And you literally just are on this constant journey where it just takes over your life and everything else is just in the background because you're consumed by just trying to feel well. And then you'll have a good day or a good week and it will be the best thing ever. And then you're just anticipating when it's going to go downhill again. And it can feel like such a burden to live with, day in, day out. But there are so many different things you can do, different ways you can help yourself. But you do have to do it correctly. It definitely has to be done thoroughly and correctly. Because for many years, I was kind of delving into the diet and then coming back out, delving back in, and it would never really settle. But now, obviously, things have. Something I always say is what's so great about your book, Wendy, is everything's in one place. And so that really helps you to sort of get a roadmap of what you're going to try and, what you're going to come up against in the next six months or a year to get yourself into a good pattern. So it's a wonderful thing to resource to have.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And can you remember like that, just that feeling? I know myself, like, you know, I just thought that was it. I was stuck with this condition forever. And I had some toxic person recently say, it's false. It can't happen. I'm like, no. I think you're missing the point. Perhaps you can't read the title of my book. It has happened. And this is why I do what I do. And I'm so passionate about it. I mean, literally it you know, every waking moment of my life is like, no, this information has to get out, because you hear of, you know, women ending their lives because they feel that they have no hope, you know. So I remember myself just thinking, is this it? Is this the full extent, you know? So, and what about you, Marie? Can you remember when, you know, you were at that point, that desperate point where you think like, is this it? You know, everything that the doctors and things are telling me is just not working.
Yeah, and it's, there was no other choice. You know, they just kept telling me it's going to be more surgery, even more painkillers, and then more painkillers or whatever to counteract the side effects of the drugs they were giving me. And then I had that coil fitted, which was just, you know, they promised me would be, you know, it would put my symptoms, you know, to rest, and I would be pain-free, and, you know, but all it did was give me a whole host of other symptoms that were hideous. So I ended up on more medication because of that, and I just couldn't, I literally couldn't see an end to it. I just thought, this is gonna, I felt like a complete hypochondriac. I thought, in the doctors, I'm phoning them up, like, remember quite visibly, just after about 3 months after the coil had been fitted, and they put me on, or the migraines had started, which I'd never had before in my life. I'd never had, you know, I'd heard friends say how bad they were, and I thought, well, it must just be a headache. That was a direct result of that coil. And I remember standing in the car park at work, phoning the doctors in absolute pieces, saying, I can't go into work, you know, I've got to work, but my head is now so bad. And they said, well, you just have to have more medication to counteract that. And I thought, when does this stop? You know, and it would be another, well, the coil was fitted in May 2013, and it would be, May 2013, and it came out in May 2016, just after I'd read your book. And it was thank God, I say it every time I get interviewed about this now, and I, you know, talk about you. If you hadn't written that book, I do not know where I would be right now. It's that simple.
It's kind of giving me goosebumps down my arms hearing that, you know, because I really felt the responsibility, because when I was able to sort of recognize what I needed to do to put it into remission, or it was starting to work, I was like a woman possessed, you know. I was just like, I have to get this information out, because it's like, I didn't know that. And I know that there's other women out there that don't know that and need to know that, at least to say, at least try, at least that there is another option. There had to be another way, because even what you're describing, it's enough. And I relate as well. I don't use Sarah. I felt like a complete hypochondriac. Like I didn't want to be having those symptoms. I didn't want to be feeling that way.
No, of course, no. I remember, for me as well, I remember when I was seeing the endometriosis specialist for my 4th surgery, and I said to them, surely there must be something, you know, you're constantly just digging, like, what more, there must be something that you can do. And they said, I said to them, I've tried the diet, and they said, how did that work out for you? And because I was on it, off it, or I wasn't properly on it then, they seemed really like happy that it wasn't working, because they were just like, yeah, the diet doesn't work. They just, I couldn't believe it. And I was just, now looking back in hindsight, I'm just like, why would you try and be encouraging about that it's not going to work? Because these things do work. And I know that now, because for me, it's nearly 3 years since my last surgery. And it's been phenomenal.
I know. Well, it's interesting you say that, because I recently interviewed fantastic doctor called Dr. Kim Jobst, who's a medical doctor and also a metaphysician as well. I mean, and he's very unusual, and he's done mainstream medicine, but also expanded into all these other realms as well. And it's very rare to get someone who is such an open mind. And he was saying, can you imagine, like, you've just spent 7 years or 10 years learning a certain thing, you know, down that kind of mainstream medical training and pharmaceuticals, and then actually someone comes along and says, actually, there is another way. You would naturally, defensively just cut that off. You just wouldn't want to know, because it'd be like, what? No, that's not right. I wasn't taught that. Because that's it, you know, to be fair, the mainstream medical field are a byproduct of their conditioning, aren't they? They don't know any different. And I do so love it. And that's why I felt so honored to have so many doctors, you know, write reviews and forewords and stuff now, because they're recognizing what the human body is. It's a self-healing mechanism. And as you're describing, Marie, like you had the coil and then you were getting worse and getting all these other symptoms. And that, I don't know if either of you relate to this, but I remember having the 6th surgery and being almost borderline hysterical when I was having emptied my savings account to pay for that privately in the UK, thinking I'd get the best surgeon with the best fandangle equipment and burn everything out and clean me all up, and I remember being obsessed about the size of his hands, funnily enough. I remember being so grateful that his hands were tiny. I don't know why. That seemed to comfort me somehow. But you know, I just remember going, and he was kind of like, oh, well, it might be that you just developed another condition. And I'm like, no, but you were supposed to fix the last one. And like, I want to get back to my work. I want to get on with my life. And I just remember feeling, oh my God, like, what's happening to me? And somebody help me, like that kind of like hysteria of like, somebody help me here. Like, I don't know what's happening. And him kind of like being so dismissive, and ended up not responding to my emails because I'm like, what do you mean? And then of course it was a hysterectomy thing. But I mean, the idea of developing other conditions when you were going to get one eradicated or fixed or healed or cured or whatever, and then it gets worse, that is, it's very disorientating to the psyche, isn't it? You know, you put your hands into people who are supposed to fix you and make you better, and then when that doesn't happen and you really are left on your own.
Absolutely.
You know, it's full credit to both of you for following that intuition or that guidance to go and seek, like following that, because, you know, and I think this is, I do these kind of things and say to people, if you're on the fence, there's no side effects to do.
No, exactly. And interestingly, as Marie said, with the coil, because that was the only other thing left for me. There was nothing else apart from this excruciating, like burning pain every day, burning. But I don't know if you guys had burning pain, but mine's always been burning in the right ovary and just around the whole back area. And it's just, excruciating. And so the next step, I said to them, what are you going to do? Right, I need some help. Like, you know, you do get to that point where you're just like, there's got to be something. And they said, have the coil. That's the only thing left to try. And I just knew, I don't know how I've always known, but I just knew, don't do it. It would have made me so unwell, like probably how Marie was. So I'm so glad I didn't. But on that note, just to say, unfortunately, because I was put on the pill continuously for 10 years, and I've actually now, they were just investigating Crohn's. They weren't sure what was going on, colitis and stuff, but I think it is definitely the SIBO, I think, just, and the gut issues that now I'm trying to get on top of. Probably part of it is because of the pill, but they found by mistake in some of the MRIs, they found I think I've got 3 or 4 tumours on my liver. And the tumours, I've got another MRI, a 4th MRI in less than a few months. I've got one next week. Because they measure in the size to see how much they've grown, and it's because they've confirmed it's because of the contraceptive pill that I've got these tumours in my liver. And if they grow any bigger, I'll have to have them removed. And it's just like more surgery on the back of the treatment you put me on. And I trusted you. I trusted them to, you know, I was so sure that they knew what they were doing, and they so didn't. And so it's just like, I think
that's it, isn't it? You know, we put our trust in, and in fact, one of our students is coming through the EndoBoss Academy at the moment, and she's like, she emailed her and she's like, how come we trusted all those like big corporations and governments and things that they put all these products out there that are so toxic, that cause, you know, all these side effects over and above the pill and the drugs and everything. We're so trusting, aren't we? Because we don't know to question, we don't think to question, because the conditioning is just to kind of, you know.
I love that Sara didn't listen to herself though, because instinctively, and I even remember back in 2013 when they said, because I've been through 3 IVF cycles by that point, and you know, I'd had I think 2 or 3 surgeries, and the pain just kept getting worse, but they said they didn't want me going back on the pill, interestingly, and I've been on it, Sara, since I was 17 as well. So, and I've also got an identical twin who's also been on the pill for that many years, and she's also got tumours on her liver, and they've categorically said it's because of that. So
it's ridiculous.
but it's, I remember sitting in that room thinking, I don't want this foreign body inserted into my uterus. And do you know what? It was agony when it went in. And she went, oh, it won't hurt much. I had to take 3 days off work, and then everything just started getting worse from there. And the desperation and the hysteria that you mentioned, Wendy, I had by the January, so I had it fitted in the May, and by the September, I'd started developing the migraines and the nausea that would accompany the 20-day bleeding that I then developed. Yes. My pain was reduced. I will give them the credit there. My pain score did reduce probably from about a 9 to a 6, but that was the only benefit. I then got 20 days worth of bleeding instead of 7 to 10. But I remember I went to 3 different doctors. I went to a family planning clinic. I went back to my own GP, and I literally went up to A&E one day, and I said, you have to take this thing out. And this is June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Well, 9 months after it was fitted, I said, you've got to take it out. I don't want it in there anymore. Nobody would listen to me. They made me sit with it for 3 years before, thankfully, having read your book, I went into my GP and I said, if you do not remove this thing, it's not going to settle. My body has not got used to it. I've put on 2.5 stone in weight now as well, thanks very much, just to add insult to injury. And if you don't remove it, I will sit in this in your room and remove it myself, because that is how desperate I was. And I wasn't kidding, because I was at the point of hysteria, because they just wouldn't do anything. And they kept saying, it's got to stay in for 5 years. Your body will get used to it. You'll adjust. And I just wasn't. And nobody was listening to me. And I kept thinking, and it's only when I read your book, and it's like trusting your instincts and listening into your body. And I'd never questioned anything like that before. I'd never questioned, that what I was being told wasn't right for me. You just assume they're doing everything for your best interests. But I was desperate. I can't even tell you how to go in there and literally threaten to pull that thing out myself, which I know could have, I probably wouldn't have got to that, because I'm sure I'd have been stopped before I did it. And even then, it took 3, when they finally booked me in, it took 3 attempts to remove the damn thing, because it was just wedged in there. So it was agony coming out as well. I nearly passed out. Yeah. And I just cried with relief. I sat in that surgery, in that doctor's GP's room, and I sobbed with relief when it came out. And she said, oh, is it that painful? And I went, you've got no idea. I couldn't even talk to her about the effect, the traumatic effect that whole period of time had on me, and the fact that I wasn't listened to, desperation with not feeling like I knew my own body. I felt like I was losing my mind, just awful. Sorry, just drag it right down there. But,
and that's why we're chatting like this, because it's almost like we're going back in time, because we've moved beyond it. And I think I used to love hearing inspiring stories from people when I was ill, and not so much kind of like, oh well, I'm fixed now, and I'm going, oh no, but tell me what it was like when you were really bad, and then what did you do to get well? Because there's nothing worse than going, and I've arrived at my destination. I'm like, okay, that's great, but what steps did you take to get there? And what was it like? Just help me recognize that it's not just me, and help me recognize that the feelings I'm having are okay. And that's why I'm doing the Ultimate Emotional Health Summit, because we all struggle, don't we, with the emotions and the feelings we have, because we start to doubt, we almost disassociate from ourselves, because we don't want to be ill. I think that's what almost gaslighting and really insulting is. You get people who've never had a period in their life, got no idea what it's like. Yet, I suffered 33 years. Marie, you were almost, 20 odd years?
Over 25, yeah.
25 years. And Sarah, you were a similar.
About 25 as well, yeah. From day dot, first period.
What is that? I mean, that's almost like 100 years worth of pain and suffering that wasn't necessary. Yeah. And when you're begging people, because you just want to go on with your life, and then those people that are, unknowingly, we'll assume, causing more pain and suffering, then turn around and make you out as if like you're somehow wanting attention and you're a hypochondriac. Oh my goodness, talk about, adding insult to injury. It's really, and this is why the emotional component is so important to support you whilst you're doing all the physical healing and the spiritual healing, if you like, as well, because your spirit literally gets beaten down, doesn't it, over these years? I mean, even as you're both talking about the coil, I was lucky, I guess, because I think just at operation number 5, when they went in to do an investigation, I was under huge pressure by the surgeon to get a coil installed, and the nurse said, I said to her on the way down to the operating room, I said, what would you do? And she said, if it was me, I wouldn't do it. And she said, you do know that they get £100 for everyone that they insert.
I've heard you say that, yeah.
It's just so like, so I don't know, I'm like, am I that naive? I just didn't know that. And then it's, so yeah. And so I thought, well, if she's wouldn't have it, I'm not going to have it. And I just knew my body was so sensitive, it would reject it immediately. And I was in excruciating pain as it was. But, you know, so I feel lucky to have missed that. But I mean, it's so interesting hearing you both talk, you know, and I hope you find even just hearing each other, like, you know, what amazing, that's why you're EndoBosses, you know, that's why, you know, and Sara, your medal's going to be on its way down to you, but you can see Marie's in the back.
I can see, yeah, her backdrop.
Your certificates and stuff, because you do deserve a medal. 25 years, you know, each, and I'm 33 years. You're like, how did we make it? We're made of stern stuff, you know. You open us up and we've got EndoBoss under our skin, you know. It's just like, it's just, so this is why I wanted to share, because like we've been there, we understand it, but equally what's, I think I kind of want to move on to now is like, you know, what does it feel like to be where you are now, you know, to recognize the relationship you have. I'll start with you first, Marie. I mean, I know that you're now, you know, working for me and as a coach and coaching some of my women that are coming through the EndoBoss Academy, which is awesome. And, you know, it's almost taken you back to some degree to remind you of, you know, how far you've come.
Yeah, it's wonderful to, I mean, the fact that I can empathise on such a level with the ladies that are coming through, but I hope inspire them, as you did with me, that, you know, you will think you're the one lady that it doesn't work for. You will think that your symptoms are worse than anybody else's or different to everybody else's. And, you know, you go through that real phase of comparing and thinking it's not going to work. And then all of a sudden you start seeing those little green shoots that we all love seeing. And slowly but slowly it improves. You know, like I say, to have suffered for as long as I did, and yet within 3 months of working with you to 6 months, my symptoms had definitely reduced. Within a year, they were completely gone. And that is incredible in one respect, but definitely makes me sad in another that I suffered for that long, when if the medical route hadn't done what it had done, I wouldn't have, who knows where my life would have, you know, I might have had to have the 3 IVF surgeries and all the treatments and, you know, the 3 or 4 invasive surgeries I had, and you know, the time I've lost, the relationships I've lost, the friendships that have been affected, my work that's been affected, but it's happened for a reason. And
you couldn't do the work you're doing now had it not.
No, exactly. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And it, you know, and I know we talked a couple of weeks ago, and I think, I can't remember if I'd had a meditation before I came on, but you asked me how it felt now. Like, and I said pure acceptance. It's pure acceptance of my body, of my emotional state, of everything that's gone before. And there's no, I can't, it was a sad time, but I don't, and I still get very emotive when I talk about it because of what I've been subjected to, but I'm able to almost separate from it now and see it for what it is, and to be actually grateful for having had the condition, bizarrely, just because I wouldn't be doing this now. I wouldn't have read your book, I wouldn't have worked with you, you know, and it's just, I'm a firm believer in fate, and it's incredible. Yeah.
And even just hearing you talk, I mean, it sounds like it's all happened for us, and we were in training, so to speak, because, you know, we wouldn't be here now doing what we're doing. At the same time, as you say, there is a natural grieving process. I mean, that's a long period of time, and I think understanding it is a complex condition, and understanding the complexity of the 5 Ps. I think, you know, for me, the last 2 elements were really, really hard for me, which is why I'm like, you know, my work's evolving into the emotional health, because I really get how challenging that is, especially for our personality types, you know, where you have to be really strong to keep going through those levels of pain. That's why it's like, I have to, you know, I always talked about giving you all medals, because literally how many battles had you been through, but you've now won the war. That said, I think it's, you know, when you look back to and I think that is part of the process, isn't it, is recognizing that, you know, what might have been lost, but this was actually happening for you, for your greater purpose. That's my belief, with every single woman every single woman. And that's where I kind of like trying to find the meaning in behind the disease, the disharmony, kind of, it's more than that, which is the level of debt. But going back to the medical field, it's quite staggering that it hasn't advanced at all, apart from robotic surgery and even diagnosis. I know that there's a lab that's just emailed me the other day saying, as I'm on their newsletters and I get Google alerts and stuff, if there's any developments in endometriosis kind of treatments or testing and things like that. So I always like to keep ahead of what's happening. So there's this trial going through right now that this lab is going to, from blood tests, be able to discern and give people diagnosis of endometriosis. And if you think people have to get a surgery on an already inflamed body to get a diagnosis, it just seems absolutely ludicrous. And if this was any other condition, it would have advanced by quite a significant amount already. But these trials for this blood test are not going to be available for another 4 years.
No. How bizarre you mentioned that, because one of my Facebook memories came up, I'm going to say 2 days ago, from a post I put up 3 years ago, saying, because BBC shared a thing saying that they were developing I was on Good Morning Britain, or it was on one of the, and I remember I put my status was, thank God at the moment you have to have an invasive surgical procedure. This will help millions of women, and we're still not there.
I know, and I think there needs exactly. I mean, we'll build momentum. The more that our community widens and gets bigger and stuff, we can really start to kind of like put pressure on the powers that be to say this is ludicrous. If you think they reckon it's 1 in 10 women, I think it's a lot more than that.
Yeah, I do.
The amount of women that have pain with their periods, and pain is not normal. Pain is an indication that there's something, that needs attention. If you think how many women are in pain, and as I say, like great grannies go, well, that's just part of being a woman, dear. That's not, so it is ludicrous that women have to have surgery in an already inflamed body to get a diagnosis. And it's the ladies that email through that say they've had the surgery and the surgeon can't find anything. That I'm always like, well, just because they can't find it doesn't mean it's not there. And ultimately you're not going insane. And if you relate and identify with everything, all the symptoms, then you trust your own instincts over everybody else. Because I mean, even just hearing your stories, I mean, it's just, there's so many millions of women out there going through this, crazy making situation. Yeah.
Hey, it's Wendy here again. I hope you've enjoyed part 1 of the EndoBoss Table Talk with Sara, Marie and me. We will be back tomorrow or the next couple of days with part 2. Take care, to your health.
Thanks for listening to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K. Laidlaw. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and rate us. If you're interested in learning more, you can download your top 5 jumpstart tips at healendometriosisnaturally.com and jump on the VIP email list. Remember to keep you number 1. The world needs a healthy you.